As the ravine water swallowed my screams, I heard my husband's brothers dividing my bank accounts like I was already buried. 1 week later, I wasn't just alive, I owned the ground they were standing on. We meet Favour Blackwood, a woman who built an empire while playing the role of the dutiful wife. She codes million-dollar contracts in the dead of night while Danjuma Harrington and his brothers, Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa, spend her earnings on imported whiskey and losing poker hands. The intro establishes the brutal imbalance, a household where Favour is the invisible architect of their wealth, and the Harrington men treat her like a renewable resource with no memory and no breaking point. The Harrington manor smelled like money that didn't belong to the men who spent it. Favour sat in her home office, the smallest room in the house, tucked behind the wine cellar, finishing a contract for a Dubai tech firm. 3 a.m. The payment would clear by dawn, $340,000. By noon, Danjuma would have transferred half of it to cover Ibrahim's gambling debts. He never asked. Downstairs, she could hear them, her husband and his brothers, still awake, glasses clinking. Celebrating something. Always celebrating. She saved the fire, encrypted it, and allowed herself one moment of stillness. Her reflection stared back from the dark window, 32 years old, circles under her eyes, hands cramped from typing. Behind her, the door opened without a knock. Danjuma. You still working? His tone carried that edge, the one that meant he needed something. Just finished. Good. Ibrahim needs $40,000 by Friday. Not a question. Never a question. Favour's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. That's the third time this month. His family. Danjuma stepped closer, and she smelled the whiskey. You have a problem supporting my family. She wanted to say, I am your family. But she'd learned years ago that words like that only made things worse. I handle it, she said quietly. He smiled, empty, entitled. I knew I could count on you. When he left, Favour sat in the dark for a long time, staring at her screen. The contracts. The offshore accounts she'd built. The empire she'd constructed while they slept off hangovers and made jokes about her little computer job. She opened a hidden folder on her desktop. Inside, months of screenshots. Bank transfers. Forged signatures. A pattern she'd been documenting but hadn't yet confronted. Her hand hovered over the mouse. Not yet, she told herself. But soon. Downstairs, the brothers laughed, loud, careless, the sound of men who believed they were untouchable. Favour closed the folder and went to bed alone. It started with a decline card. Favour was at a coffee shop near her co-working space when her corporate Amex was rejected. She tried again. Same result. The barista looked embarrassed for her. No problem, Favour said smoothly, pulling out a secondary card. But her pulse was racing. She didn't wait for the coffee. She went straight to her car and logged into the business account from her phone. Empty. Not low. Empty. $230,000 gone. Her fingers flew across the screen, pulling up transaction histories, transfer logs. And there it was, a wire transfer to an account she didn't recognize. Authorized with her digital signature. Except she hadn't authorized it. She drove home in silence, her mind running through scenarios, each one worse than the last. When she arrived, the house was quiet. Danjuma's car was gone. The brothers too. She went straight to his office, a room she was never supposed to enter, and found his laptop still open. Sloppy. Arrogant. It took her less than 10 minutes to crack his password. He'd used their wedding date, which would have been sweet if it wasn't so stupid. What she found made her stomach turn. Transfers. Dozens of them. Her accounts drained systematically over 18 months. Money funneled into offshore LLCs registered to Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa. A shell company called Harrington Holdings that existed only to launder her earnings into their pockets. And at the bottom of a folder labeled insurance, a document that made her blood run cold, a forged will, leaving everything to Danjuma in the event of her untimely death. The date on the file, 3 weeks ago. Favour sat back, her hands shaking. They weren't just stealing from her. They were planning to erase her. She heard the front door open. Voices in the foyer, Danjuma's laugh, Ibrahim's deeper rumble. Favour closed the laptop carefully, wiped her prints from the desk, and walked downstairs. Her husband smiled when he saw her. "Hey, babe. We are heading out for dinner. You want to come?" She looked at him, really looked. The man she trusted. The man who'd convinced her that love meant sacrifice. "No," she said. "I have work to do. Suit yourself." They left. And Favour went back upstairs and copied every single file onto an encrypted drive she kept in a safe deposit box only she knew about. If they wanted a war, she'd give them one. But they'd never see it coming. The text came at midnight. "Need to talk. Meet me at the old Crescent Road overlook. Come alone. D." Favour stared at her phone. Crescent Road was a winding stretch of highway 20 miles outside the city, bordered by forest on one side and a steep ravine on the other. No one went there at night. She should have said no. But part of her, foolish, desperate, still hoped there was an explanation. That maybe Danjuma had discovered the theft too. That maybe he'd want to fix this together. She drove. The overlook was deserted when she arrived, just a gravel pull-off and a rusted guardrail. Her headlights cut through the dark, illuminating nothing but trees. Then she saw them. Not Danjuma. Ibrahim. Sadiq. Musa. Her husband's brother stepped out from behind a truck she hadn't noticed, and her stomach dropped. "Where's Danjuma?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "He's busy," Ibrahim said. "The oldest. The cruelest. Sent us instead." "Why?" Musa laughed, a sound that set her teeth on edge. "You really don't know, do you?" She did. Suddenly, horribly, she did. Favour turned to run, but Sadiq was faster. He grabbed her arm, yanked her back. She screamed, and his hand clamped over her mouth. "Relax," Ibrahim said, walking closer. "This doesn't have to hurt." "You're a liability, Favour," Sadiq whispered in her ear. "You know too much. And frankly, you're worth more to us dead than alive." They dragged her toward the guardrail. She fought, clawed, kicked, bit, but there were 3 of them and 1 of her. Her feet left the ground as they lifted her over the rail. "Nothing personal," Ibrahim said. And they let go. The fall felt endless. She hit water, ice cold, black, and the ravine swallowed her whole. Her lungs screamed. Her limbs flailed. Above, she could hear them laughing, their voices fading as they walked back to the truck. "Split it 3 ways." Musa's voice carried on the wind. 4, Ibrahim corrected. "Danjuma gets his cut." Then silence. Favour's body went limp, the current pulling her downstream. Her vision blurred. Her thoughts scattered. "This is how I die," she thought. Alone. Erased. Forgotten. But then, light. A beam cutting through the water. Hands grabbing her jacket. A voice shouting her name. And darkness. Favour woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Her throat burned. Her ribs screamed. But she was alive. Easy. A familiar voice. "Don't try to sit up." Favour's eyes focused slowly. Amina Goldin sat beside the bed, her silver hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. Amina. Her mentor from a decade ago. The woman who taught her everything about offshore finance and digital security before they'd had a falling out over Favour's marriage to Danjuma. "What?" Favour's voice cracked. "How?" "I've been following you for 3 months, Amina said bluntly. Ever since you emailed me that encrypted file about the Harrington accounts. You asked for advice, remember? I gave it. But I also started watching." Favour's memory flickered. The email. She'd sent it in a moment of desperation, not expecting a response. "You saved me," I was parked a quarter-mile down the road. Saw them throw you. Got to the water in time. Amina leaned forward. Barely. Tears stung Favour's eyes. They tried to kill me. And they think they succeeded. Amina's voice was ice. Which gives us an advantage. Us. You didn't think I'd let those bastards walk away from this, did you? Amina pulled out a tablet, swiped through screens. You've been legally dead for 48 hours. Nobody recovered. The police are treating it as a tragic accident. Danjuma filed a missing person report this morning. Favour's chest tightened. He's pretending to care. He's covering his tracks. But here's the thing, Favour, Amina's smile was sharp. Dead women don't need permission to burn the world down. And you? You've got enough ammunition to destroy them all. For the first time since the fall, Favour felt something other than fear. She felt fury. Tell me what to do. Amina handed her the tablet. On the screen, the Harrington financial records. The shell companies. The debt. And at the center of it all, a lending firm Favour didn't recognize. Golden Phoenix Capital, Amina said. Predatory lender targeting high-risk gamblers. Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa have been borrowing from them for months. They are drowning in interest. Favour's eyes narrowed. Who owns it? Amina's smile widened. You do. Or you will, once you sign these papers. Favour stared at the contract. At the trap her mentor had built. At the noose tightening around the Harrington brothers' throats. How long do we have? She asked. 7 days before the default. Then the estate goes to auction. Favour looked at Amina, this woman who'd never stopped believing she was worth saving, and made a decision. Let's take everything. The hospital room became a war room. Favour's body was broken, but her mind had never been sharper. Amina set up encrypted laptops, routed connections through proxy servers in 3 countries, and taught Favour how to move like a ghost through the Harrington finances. They think you're dead, Amina reminded her. So they're not watching their accounts. Use that. Favour's fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory kicking in despite the pain medication. First, she locked Danjuma out of her primary business accounts, changed passwords, added 2-factor authentication he couldn't bypass. Then she redirected incoming payments to a new offshore account registered under a shell company she'd created years ago as a safety net. Within 6 hours, she'd reclaimed $1.2 million. Good, Amina said, watching over her shoulder. Now had them. Favour pulled up the Harrington Holdings records. The company the brothers had used to funnel her money. She'd watched them build it, transaction by transaction, thinking she was too trusting to notice. She sent an anonymous tip to the IRS. Tax fraud. Money laundering. Forged documents. Everything meticulously documented. Then she moved to the loans. Golden Phoenix Capital, Amina's creation, Favour's weapon, had been designed for exactly this moment. The brothers had borrowed against the Harrington estate, their cars, even their trust funds. The interest rates were legal but brutal, 18% compounding monthly. Favour adjusted the terms. A single keystroke triggered the default clause. Another keystroke sent foreclosure notices to their lawyers. By morning, the Harrington estate would be in play. They'll try to refinance, Favour said. Let them try. Amina pulled up another screen. I've already contacted every major bank in the region. Told them the Harrington accounts are under federal investigation. No one will touch them. Favour leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you married him, Amina said quietly. I knew Danjuma was a parasite. I just didn't think he'd try to kill you. The words hung in the air. I should have listened to you, Favour whispered. You're listening now. Amina squeezed her shoulder. And that's what matters. Over the next 3 days, Favour dismantled the Harrington empire piece by piece. She called in debts they didn't know she held. She sold off assets they'd registered in her name. She froze accounts, cancelled credit lines, and made sure every financial institution knew the brothers were liabilities. By day 7, the estate auction was set. And Favour Blackwood, legally dead, financially invisible, was the highest bidder. She bought the house for a fraction of its worth. The same house where she'd been invisible. The same house where they'd laughed at her, used her, planned her murder. Now it was hers. And they didn't even know she was coming. The night before the eviction, Amina took Favour to see the estate. They parked down the road, hidden by trees, and watched the lights blaze in every window. Music drifted across the lawn. The brothers were throwing a party. "Celebrating your death," Amina said darkly. Favour's jaw tightened. She could see shapes moving behind the curtains. Danjuma's silhouette in the study. Ibrahim on the balcony, drink in hand. "They have no idea," Favour murmured. "None." Amina handed her a folder. "Final ownership papers. The estate, the cars, even the furniture, it's all yours. The auction closed an hour ago. They'll receive eviction notices at dawn." Favour opened the folder, scanning the documents. Everything legal. Everything airtight. "How did you do this?" she asked. "Set up Golden Phoenix, position the loans, time everything so perfectly." Amina was quiet for a moment. "Then, I started 3 years ago. When you sent me that first email asking about prenuptial protections. You said it was hypothetical, but I knew better. So I built you an exit strategy." Favour's throat tightened. "You've been protecting me this whole time." "Someone had to." Amina's voice softened. "You were so determined to make that marriage work. To prove you could love someone who didn't deserve it. I couldn't stop you. But I could prepare for the day you'd need to escape." Favour looked at this woman, brilliant, ruthless, loyal, and realized she'd never truly been alone. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." Amina nodded toward the house. "Tomorrow, you walk back into that place as its owner. They'll see you. They'll know you survived. And they'll try to hurt you again. Let them try. That's my girl." Amina smiled grimly. "I have security with us. Legal team on standby. The police are already aware of the accident, one anonymous tip about attempted murder, and they'll be very interested in questioning the brothers." Favour watched the party continue, oblivious. She thought about the woman she'd been a week ago, exhausted, invisible, afraid. That woman was gone. In her place, someone who drowned and come back breathing fire. "I want them to see me walk through that door," Favour said. "I want them to know exactly who took everything from them. They will." They sat in silence, watching the house that would soon be hers. And Favour smiled. Danjuma Harrington gave the performance of his life. The press conference was held in the estate's grand foyer, cameras flashing as he stood at a podium, his face the perfect mask of grief. Beside him, Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa, all dressed in dark suits, all playing their parts. "My wife was everything to me," Danjuma said, voice breaking at precisely the right moment. "Favour was brilliant, kind, and she was my world. This tragedy has devastated our family." A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Harrington, there are rumors that your wife's business accounts have been frozen. Can you comment?" "That's a private matter," Ibrahim cut in smoothly. "Out of respect for Favour's memory, we won't be discussing finances." Because there were no finances left to discuss. The cameras didn't catch the way Danjuma's jaw tightened. The way Sadiq's hand curled into a fist. They discovered the frozen accounts that morning, every business line of credit denied, every loan called in, every asset suddenly under investigation. They tried to access Favour's offshore accounts. Locked. They tried to refinance the estate. Rejected. And then the foreclosure notice had arrived. Who the hell is Golden Phoenix Capital? Musa had demanded, staring at the paperwork. None of them knew. But it didn't matter. The auction was done. The house was sold. They had 72 hours to vacate. But publicly, Danjuma played the devoted husband. The shattered widower. We are offering a reward for any information about the accident, he told the cameras. Favour deserves justice. The reporters ate it up. When the press conference ended, the brothers retreated to the study, the one room the cameras hadn't filmed, and the masks came off. This is insane, Sadiq hissed. How did we lose the house? The loans, Ibrahim said, pacing. Someone knew exactly when we'd default. Favour, Danjuma said quietly. They all turned to look at him. That's impossible, Musa said. She's dead. We made sure. Did we? Danjuma's voice was cold. Did anyone actually see a body? Silence. The police said no remains were recovered, Ibrahim said slowly. But the current, the ravine. What if she survived? Danjuma stood, and for the first time, something like fear crossed his face. What if someone pulled her out? Then we have a problem, Sadiq said. No. Danjuma's expression hardened. Then we finish what we started. But even as he said it, a text came through on his phone. Unknown number. See you tomorrow. F. His blood ran cold. What is it? Ibrahim asked. Danjuma showed him the screen. And for the first time, the Harrington brothers realized they might have made a mistake. A fatal one. The party was in full swing when Favour arrived. The estate, her estate now, glowed against the night sky, every window blazing, luxury cars crowding the circular driveway. Inside, the Harrington brothers were hosting what they told guests was a celebration of life for Favour. Really, it was a victory lap. Favour stepped out of the black town car, flanked by Amina and 2 private security guards. She wore a tailored white suit, not mourning, but resurrection. Her hair was pulled back, her face healed enough that makeup covered the worst of the bruises. She looked like a ghost. A very expensive, very angry ghost. Ready? Amina asked. Favour nodded. They walked through the front door without knocking. The music was loud, too loud. No one noticed at first. Favour moved through the crowd like she owned the place. Because she did. She found Danjuma in the study, surrounded by business associates, whiskey in hand, mid-laugh about something. Favour stood in the doorway and waited. Someone saw her first. A woman in a red dress, her face draining of color. Then another. And another. The music didn't stop, but the voices did. A wave of silence rolled through the room as people turned, stared, pointed. Danjuma's laugh died mid-breath. He turned. And saw his dead wife standing 10 feet away. Hello, Danjuma, Favour said quietly. His glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. Around the room, guests gasped, whispered, pulled out phones. Ibrahim appeared from the hallway, froze. Sadiq and Musa behind him, their faces identical marks of shock and horror. You, Danjuma's voice was barely a whisper. You're supposed to be dead. Favour finished. I was. For about 3 minutes. Then someone pulled me out of the ravine. Funny how that works. The room was completely silent now. Every eye on her. How did you, Ibrahim started. Get here? Favour smiled, and it was the coldest thing anyone had ever seen. I drove. To my house. The one I bought at auction yesterday. The one you're all currently trespassing in. Musa laughed, nervous, disbelieving. That's insane. This is the Harrington estate. Was, Amina corrected, stepping forward. She held up a folder. As of 9 a.m. yesterday, this property belongs to Favour Blackwood. You have 1 hour to remove your personal belongings before security escorts you out. This is a mistake, Danjuma said, his voice gaining strength. Some kind of fraud. The only fraud, Favour said, her voice cutting through his, was the 18 months you spent stealing from me. The forged signatures. The shell companies. The fake will. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and suddenly her voice filled the room, a recording of the brothers' conversation at the ravine, their laughter as they threw her over the rail, their discussion of splitting her assets. Every word. Every confession. The guests stood frozen, horrified. "I've already sent this to the police," Favour said. "Along with financial records proving conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted murder." Danjuma's face went white. "You can't." "I already did." Favour stepped closer. "You tried to erase me. You treated me like I was nothing. Like I didn't build everything you're standing in." She looked around the room, at the art she'd paid for, the furniture she'd selected, the life she'd created while they drank it away. "So I'm taking it all back." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Security will see you out," Favour said. "Don't bother packing. Everything here stays with the house." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Danjuma." She looked back at her husband, this man who'd promised to love her, to protect her, to build a life with her. "I'm filing for divorce. You'll be served tomorrow. Don't contest it. You can't afford the lawyer." The police cars pulled into the driveway. And Favour Blackwood walked out of that house for the last time, leaving the Harrington brothers exactly where they tried to leave her. Broken. Alone. With nothing. The arrest was humiliatingly public. Officers led Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa out in handcuffs while cameras flashed and former guests watched from the lawn. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Fraud. The charges mounted as they were read aloud, each one another nail in the coffin of the Harrington name. Danjuma wasn't arrested, not yet. The police wanted more evidence, wanted to build an airtight case. But he was escorted off the property with a restraining order forbidding him from coming within 500 feet of Favour or the estate. He stood on the street, watching security load his belongings, what little they'd allowed him to take, into a single car. Everything else stayed. The art collection worth millions. The wine cellar. The cars. All of it now belonged to the woman he'd tried to kill. Favour watched from the balcony, Amina beside her. "How does it feel?" Amina asked. Favour was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the years of being invisible. The late nights coding while they partied. The stolen money, the forged signatures, the moment they'd thrown her into the ravine. "It feels like justice," she said finally. "But not satisfaction. Not yet. It will come." Below, Danjuma looked up, his eyes finding hers across the distance. Even now, even with everything lost, there was hatred in his gaze. Entitlement. The belief that somehow, he was the victim here. Favour held his stare until he looked away first. Then she turned her back on him and walked inside her house. Over the next week, the story exploded. Media outlets picked it up, tech CEO fakes death to expose husband's murder plot. Woman buys back her life after brothers-in-law tried to kill her. The headlines were sensational, but the truth was somehow more devastating. Favour gave one interview. Just one. And in it, she laid out everything, the financial abuse, the control, the theft, the violence. She showed the scars. Played the recordings. Presented the evidence. By the time she was done, the Harrington name was synonymous with greed and attempted murder. Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa were denied bail. Flight risks, the judge said. Danger to the victim. Danjuma's assets were frozen pending investigation. He was living in a motel, his lawyer paid for by his parents, who'd cut him off financially after seeing the evidence. And Favour. Favour had meetings with her legal team. With financial advisors. With the companies whose contracts she'd built. Some asked if she'd been in on the fraud. She showed them the evidence, her hacked accounts, the forged signatures, the shell companies she'd never authorized. Within a month, her business reputation was not just restored, it was elevated. People wanted to work with the woman who'd brought down the Harringtons. The woman who'd crawled out of a ravine and bought back her life. But perhaps those who've been with her through every moment of this, from the cold water to the courtroom, understand that this wasn't just about money or property. it was about reclaiming a voice that had been silenced for too long. If you felt that too, thank you for witnessing this with me. 6 months later, Favour stood in the estate study, the room that used to be Danjuma's domain, and signed the final papers. The divorce was finalized. The criminal trial concluded. Ibrahim, Sadiq, and Musa were each sentenced to 15 years. Danjuma got 8 as an accessory, his cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. Favour felt nothing watching him led away in chains. The estate itself, she'd decided, wouldn't remain a monument to her marriage. Instead, she'd converted it into something that mattered, a tech incubator for women entrepreneurs. A place where brilliant women could build their businesses without partners who saw them as ATMs. The Harrington Legacy Foundation, she called it. The irony was intentional. Amina walked in, carrying 2 glasses of wine. To new beginnings, she said, handing one to Favour. They clinked glasses, and Favour allowed herself a small smile. I couldn't have done this without you. You would have found a way? You always do. Amina sat down, studying her. So what's next? You've reclaimed everything. Built something new. What does Favour Blackwood do when she's finally free? Favour looked around the room, at the space she'd redesigned, at the contracts waiting to be reviewed for the foundation's first cohort of applicants. I keep building, she said simply. But this time, for myself. And for women who need someone to believe they're worth more than they've been told. That's a good answer. It's the only one I have. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from surviving something together. Later, after Amina left, Favour walked through the house alone. Past the foyer where Danjuma had given his fake press conference. Past the balcony where she'd first seen him arrested. She ended up in the gardens, where the ravine was just barely visible in the distance, a dark line against the horizon. She thought about the woman she'd been. The one who'd believed love meant sacrifice. Who'd worked herself to exhaustion to fund someone else's dreams. That woman was gone, drowned in cold water. In her place, someone who'd learned that the only person you could truly rely on was yourself. That kindness didn't mean letting people destroy you. That sometimes, the only way to win was to become ruthless. Favour pulled out her phone and deleted Danjuma's contact. Then the brothers. Then every reminder of the Harrington family except the foundation that would outlive them all. She felt lighter immediately. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, open, hers. And for the first time in years, Favour Blackwood walked toward it without looking back. Because some things, once you've survived them, don't deserve even a glance in the rearview mirror. They deserve to be forgotten entirely. And she was ready to forget.